Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Future of Design Forum 10-minute-ish fireside Q&A session hosted by myself, Andy Smith of TDA Creative, the design, tech and product talent agency. I am super delighted and very excited to be joined today by Nathalie Huni, who is currently Managing Director, Head of Design for Consumer Digital at Wells Fargo in New York. Nathalie, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. Happy to be here. I hope it will fit in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I'll
usually
speak
overruns
fast.
usually overruns a little bit, so don't worry about that. And I'm sure people are going to love seeing you. Nathalie, if you don't mind, let's start a little bit. I mean, usually I ask about people's background, how you developed to be where you are now, but I'm really interested by looking at your background. You were an agency person, RGA, McCann, Elephant, Digitas, to name a few. And then a couple of years ago, you joined Wells Fargo. What kind of made you move towards that change, going client side, and how have you found it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was a long journey. I spent 26, 27 years agency side. And I think there are probably two factors. One is if you look at my background and all the agencies I have worked for, over the past 20 plus years, they are all a little different. So, I started out in really web design back in the days and then move into design in physical spaces, interactive design, digital marketing later, and then slowly over the other side of the spectrum towards telling stories, advertising. From I guess the shift from a designer to an art director. And the reason why, I asked myself the question, for many years, I thought, oh, you're just very unstable. You keep on changing. You don't know what you want. But I think it really stems from, as a kid, I come from a dual nationality background, half French, half Filipino. I traveled a lot. We moved countries. I moved schools more than I can count. I moved cities, and I think probably part of that, stems from the fact that for me, change and moving to a new culture is very easy because I've done it from, a very young age. And it's always exciting for me, like moving to a new school. It means meeting new people, learning to adapt very quickly to different cultures. In Asia, it's very different from Europe, and the UK is also different, the US, etc. So it just came very naturally. I think it's really out of curiosity of like, oh, what are they doing here? I can learn something, let me try it. And so that's probably the reason for this this horizontal movement from like one end of the spectrum to the other. But at one point, and I think, there was a lot of catalyst for a lot of people during COVID where, there was a moment where we started thinking about what are we doing? Part of it could be COVID, part of it could be just that moment in your life when you're a little bit further along in your journey. And I thought, I have 20 more years of work. I want every single year to count. And so I was looking for purpose. I wanted to do something good. I think I was probably a little bit tired of just selling stuff, selling cars or selling insurance. I wanted to actually go get closer to the actual product and make a big difference. And I wanted to make a big difference on two levels. One, the teams that I would, have the opportunity to lead, but also the customers were using our products. And at that one moment where I was looking for a purpose, during COVID, the finance sector and the healthcare sector seemed really the two places where people needed the most help. But also they're not very sexy, for a lot of creatives. That's kind of not where you can do the best work. But I saw that as an opportunity because I love doing transformations. So getting the opportunity to lead a transformation at a place that needs a lot of transformation for me is really exciting,
Great. And how's that first couple of years been? And you still got that excitement? I mean, that transformation goes on and on, right?
On and on. Yeah, it's been 2 years. I have to be honest, it was a little bit of a culture shock. It was my first time working in-house from the agency world. And so that plus the fact that it's, working for Wells Fargo, which is one of the, the three biggest banks, very highly regulated space where it seems like you can't do much because there's so many rules. And so a little bit of a culture shock at first, but I think, again, like that background that I had of being able to adapt very quickly to different environments helped me a lot, because then I just kind of, I blended in, and then I think I used all of the things I had learned from my past experiences at all these different types of agencies to use all these additional skills to supplement, I guess, like my position as a leader of people, but also how to drive the work forward. And that I think felt, different and refreshing. And it's also something they were looking for. It's not, not everybody's looking for somebody different, but I think that was the good time, and just a good match on both sides,
Good for Wells Fargo as well.
Yeah.
And you're talking there about lessons learned on the light. So it kind of leads me on to something you mentioned to me before, a quote. I'd like you to, I'll read it out. The journey to better comes later. Can you tell us a little bit of what you mean by that?
Yeah, and first of all, I didn't come up with the quote. I actually saw it somewhere on LinkedIn. I thought, that really relates really well to my journey. So I'm borrowing it.
Like
but a bit of my story was that, as a designer, and also I was a second child, I was very introverted, as many designers are. I was a little shy, low self-confidence. My sisters, we will always say, your sister's the sun and you're the moon. And so I think for many years when I started working, especially in, agency environments where people have big egos and it's sort of the biggest personality in the room that sort of takes the spotlight, it was a little bit of a struggle for me in this, I would say maybe in the first like half of my career, to be heard, to be seen. And I would look at like the creative directors in place, and I always thought like, I don't know if I could be like them, because that's not my personality, until one day I saw Ray Inamoto, who is a force of nature in itself, but he actually spoke in his own personal style. He's actually very humble and human, and not necessarily very noisy, but everybody listened. And I thought, if I can just find a way for me to be comfortable with who I am, and it took honestly, it took years. But I think I was able to actually leverage, what I then thought as weaknesses. Now I look at them as, there's soft skills that are really undervalued, that if you feel comfortable enough to embrace them and put them forward, they are actually superpowers. And so I think today, I think that I have huge empathy for people. I think because probably as an introvert, I learned how to listen a lot, and so that is actually a strength that, a lot of leaders need to have, the ability to listen. I always think that as a leader, you're a little bit like a musical conductor of a band. And in that band, you need a little bit of everything, right? You need the altos and the sopranos. You need, a variety, like a very diverse team. And when you think about designers, especially, they're all somewhere on the spectrum. You need the right balance of talent and skill set, so that together it creates, magic.
Gonna get that ecosystem singing and dancing together, right?
You need the right balance, because if you have too many, big egos and ambitious folks, it doesn't work. So there is some sort of formula of the typology of the group that needs to exist. And for example, when I choose my directors underneath me, they're usually the opposite of me.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it's a very, yin and yang. Like we have
to
complement each other. Exactly.
I love that. Thank you. Some great advice there. And were there any personal influences in your life that have kind of helped shape you into the design leader you are today, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are probably many. Travel for sure was one of the strongest travel, just living in different places, meeting different people. I think that beyond the fact that it's I learned adaptability, I also learned a lot of, again, like human understanding people, because the more I met people from different cultures, or different industries, the more I come back to this like simple notion that people are people, and they're all kind of the same. People want to be heard, they want to be valued, they want to feel empowered, they want to be inspired, regardless of what their backgrounds or their titles are. And the more senior and junior, like I remember recently, you know, I had to talk to a group of, you know, our legal and compliance partners at Wells Fargo. It's a big group.
Yeah.
And often the case with, you know, in big companies where legal has such a lot of power and influence on the work, when we design experiences, we sort of ask for approval at the end of the project, right? And so I spoke to my team and I told them, listen, if you were to bring them early on, include them in what we're trying to do, and ask for them to understand our overall mission and the change we want to do. They will probably act in a different way, instead of the power of approval at the end. Just include them. And then I spoke to them, a large group, and I think they were very happy to hear that actually their opinion mattered. And they didn't want actually to be just at the end of the process just to approve or not. And so, you know, like I see that to be true in like in any industry, in any level. People are, you know, they have these fundamental things in common. That really helped me actually bridge people together, have people work together, you know.
Great. Inclusive design.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest lessons you've learned in design leadership, you know, hindsight's a great thing, right?
Biggest lessons learned, again, like I would say, I could say this. I've done 3 transformations over the past in my career. Once at a small agency, once in a network agency, and then this time in-house at a big company. And I've applied the same formula over. I've just sort of scaled it. But some of the things that have worked consistently is when you join a new team, the first thing you do as a leader is you have to listen. You know, you have to hear the background stories. You have to understand what has happened before you stomp in with your, with your armor and your flag saying, we're going to change everything. People want to be heard. And I think that's probably based on some of the mistakes I did earlier on, where I came in, I said, we're going to change everything. And I didn't include them in the process. They didn't feel heard. And, you know, and this was back in France, where people like to revolt and complain. There was a revolt. And so I learned from that mistake, but really I learned a lot of my leadership lessons I've learned from my kids. How do you get people to do things they don't want to do? You have to make it. That resonates. You know, you have to give them options. You have to listen to them. You also, you have to make it fun. You know, we're creatives. Even if we work at a bank, you have to make the work fun and worthwhile for them also, you know, for their portfolios, not just for the business. And you have to feed culture. There has to be a reason for them to stay more than just getting a paycheck at the end of the month. You know, and so building culture and building what I call the glue between people, that's really, really important. Brilliant. I will, you know, have them recommend the place to others, their network too, you know.
And in terms of things you're most proudest of your career, you're talking about that, being able to build that ecosystem, build that culture. Is that something you've had working in-house at Wells Fargo, you've had more opportunity to do? Has that been quite fulfilling for you?
It's a little bit difficult to do it when people are sort of spread out in different offices, obviously, you know. But I've consistently done it over many, many years. And I think I've invested myself personally. You know, I often have events at my place and I invite them over, and we have lunch together, you know, like all the little things that matter, that are sort of satellite to the actual work. That's important because I have, when the culture is good, first of all, the teams support each other. but also there are people, it has happened many times in my career where it might be designers I have worked with, you know, previously, and then I work with them again in another place.
Right.
And I always say I'm in general, I'm more, you know, the people are more important than the places.
Great. Thank you for that.
That's, you know, that's your, yeah.
And this question is one that comes up a lot, and it's even, I'm not sure if I'm positioning the question right, but any tips for kind of elevating design within big organizations? Is that the right question? Is it elevating design, or is it positioning design? You know, you get where I'm coming from, though, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the organization. You know, at Wells Fargo, design, when I joined, design was not a central group. We have, you know, sort of the design team spread out throughout the organization, but we don't have one central sort of chief design officer. And so, you know, part of that is being the ambassador for the team, but being the ambassador also for the discipline, which, you know, I've been doing that for the past 2 years. And it sort of happens incrementally. You know, first the work has to be good. So you can't be the ambassador and start, you know, shouting at the rooftops if the work that you have produced is not game changing. So that's sort of really the first step. The second one is bring the people together. You know, again, we're organizing, you know, all hands. We have speakers come in, and, you know, we invite all the designers to come together and work, so we feel connected. Again, like, this is, again, part of building the culture. I think the other part, which connected to culture and the work, is once you have the opportunity to submit awards or write white papers about the transformation that can be seen from the outside, I think then that sort of you know, radiates towards the inside. But I think you have to be also just a good people person, and bring partners along. You know, it's a very siloed organization. So anytime you can sort of build bridges amongst partners, lines of business, you will be seen as, you know, somebody who's embracing change, collaboration, and all these things matter.
There's a lot of what you said during our chat is around people connecting, empathy, listening.
I mean, honestly, it's quite simple. These are all, you know, basic skills that we should all hone in, because these are not really related to work. It's just related to being, you know, balanced person. And
you have the ability to make it sound very simple, which is probably why you're a great design leader.
It was long.
Well, look, thank you so much for all that. And I always like to finish off with a slightly left field question, but could you maybe tell us something about yourself that few people know?
I mean, I can share. I mean, you know this, but I'm a mom of 4 kids, which, you know, has been, and you know, I had my first child when I was 27, so early on in my career, when it just started. And when I, you know, over the years, when I had my second, third, and then fourth, you know, I always thought there are key moments where I thought, well, this is the end. You know, I have too many kids. There's no way I can move forward in my career. Like, people would be crazy to hire, you know, mom of 4. And of course, I've gotten help. But I hear this often from younger women who think, you know, should I wait until I'm a bit more successful? For me, you know, I think I actually learned so many things from being a mom that actually helped me get organized, multitask. You know, I'm not gonna say it wasn't hard. It was really hard, and there were choices I had to make. But at the end of the day, like, my kids and the experience of being a parent helped me be stronger and kinder. I think, you know, I look back to me before being a parent. You know, I'm probably a better person now, I think, through the pain of it.
I can emphasize with that. A lovely bit of wisdom to finish on there, Nathalie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm sure our audience are going to love watching this, and look forward to seeing you again and hosting you on further TDA talks and events that we have.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Nathalie.